The system's voice echoed inside Levi's mind, instructing him to immediately close his eyes and enter a calm, silent state in order to accelerate the upgrade process. The wounded rooster collapsed weakly onto the ground. Titus, burning with rage, shouted angrily at the divine beast, accusing it of protecting evil humans and declaring that it deserved death. The rooster realized that although part of the demon's poison had been blocked by its poison-spitting ability, the toxin was still slowly spreading through its body. Titus then turned his furious gaze toward Levi, who remained silent while resisting the pressure of the heavenly sword. He rushed forward again, determined to kill Levi immediately. But the divine beast suddenly used its teleportation ability and once again appeared between them to protect him. Completely enraged, Titus unleashed a violent strike against the divine beast. The impact sent its body flying through the air before it crashed onto the ground, lying motionless. Without wasting another moment, Titus lunged forward once again, determined to interrupt Levi's mysterious self-improvement process. Suddenly, the rooster reappeared behind the national-level demon after quickly reincarnating. It immediately activated its illusory blessing ability to restrain him. Titus spun around and saw the rooster standing behind him completely unharmed. He roared in frustration, nearly forgetting that the divine beast possessed the terrifying ability to reincarnate so quickly. Unfortunately for the rooster, the restraints created by its ability were simply not strong enough to hold down a continental-level demon. When Titus easily broke free from the shackles, the rooster could only sigh bitterly. Its illusory blessing had failed to trap him for even a single second. Filled with murderous fury, Titus shouted angrily that he was completely fed up with the rooster interfering again and again. With cruel determination, he used his Black Moon Vine ability to pin the rooster directly against a tree trunk. The terrifying toxin didn't kill the creature instantly, but instead slowly began eating away at its body. Enraged by the rooster's endless reincarnation ability, the demon deliberately chose this method of torture, intending to make the creature suffer until it begged for death. The rooster quickly realized that the demon's toxin was far too powerful for its poison-spitting ability to block completely. Not far away, Jasper anxiously called out to both the rooster and Levi. He blamed himself for not mastering the universe circulation technique properly and felt completely useless in such a desperate situation. Vivian watched the rooster repeatedly throw itself forward to stop the Yenhai newcomer from being attacked. Quietly, she blamed herself. This mission was supposed to save her brother, but instead it had dragged everyone around her into terrible danger. She asked Mateo to help her sit up as she closed her eyes and began recovering her strength. She wanted to regain her fighting power as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Titus glanced briefly at Levi before turning mockingly toward the rooster, declaring that it couldn't even save itself, let alone stop him from killing that man. With what little strength it had left, the helpless rooster weakly begged him not to approach Levi. At that exact moment, Levi's system finally completed the upgrade. It began loading real combat programs along with a new berserker fighting style into Levi's abilities. Along with the combat upgrade, the system also improved Levi's control over the terrifying Crimson Fire. Titus looked up in horror and realized that his rare sky sword had completely melted away under the relentless flames. The system's voice echoed in Levi's mind again, instructing him to carefully control the direction of the Crimson Fire and compress the flames into a single focused point. It also reported that his mastery of Crimson Fire had reached 60% of the first level. After meeting the required conditions, Levi successfully unlocked one of the divine beast control skills. Without hesitation, Levi unleashed blazing flames toward Titus using his newly upgraded fireball ability. When the demon saw the crimson flames racing toward him, his heart trembled slightly. He could clearly feel the terrifying, life-threatening aura of the fire. Reacting quickly, he activated the devouring firmament technique to block the crimson flames before they could touch his body. After successfully pushing the flames away, Titus finally felt a brief moment of relief. But before he could relax, Levi's figure suddenly appeared right behind him. Under the system's guidance, Levi combined his internal chi with the destructive power of earth fire, creating a deadly new technique known as the soul-crushing explosive fist. With unstoppable momentum, Levi rushed straight toward Titus. The demon's face turned pale as his instincts screamed with warning. Deep down he knew that if that attack landed directly, he would almost certainly die. Without hesitation, Titus activated his ultimate escape technique, Dark Substitution. Even he had never expected that this battle would force him to use such a desperate skill. Meanwhile, the rooster suddenly felt the pressure around its body disappear, unaware that it had just been teleported to another location. Still confused, it lifted its head, only to see Levi's powerful fist swinging straight toward it. Seeing the blazing black fire burning around Levi's hands, the rooster cried out in despair, convinced that this time it was truly the end. But just before the fatal strike landed, Levi forcefully twisted his body and changed the direction of the attack to save the rooster. The backlash injured him instead, and he coughed up blood. For once, the system didn't scold its master. Instead, it calmly praised Levi, acknowledging that he had made the correct choice. Levi's unexpected act of selflessness left the rooster completely stunned. It took several seconds for the rooster to understand what had happened, that the so-called evil man had deliberately redirected his attack just to save its life. At the same time, Titus calmly pulled the poisonous roses embedded in his body out one by one. Levi turned and looked directly at him. Slowly approaching Levi, Titus admitted with a dark expression that Levi was the first person who had ever forced him to use his ultimate escape technique. Levi stood calmly with black fire still burning in his hands, quietly watching Titus while waiting to see what the demon would attempt next. He admitted openly that Levi's strength was frightening. What unsettled him the most was the eerie black fire burning in Levi's hands. Just looking at those flames sent a deep chill through his heart. Yet the more dangerous Levi appeared, the stronger Titus's determination became. No matter the cost, he swore he would stop Levi from stepping even 1 foot into Tangshi City. With a sharp wave of his hand, Titus released the poisonous black divine moon, sending it forward to kill Levi with deadly toxins. At that moment, the system urgently warned Levi that earth fire could burn souls but did little physical harm, advising him to use crimson fire instead to block the demon's poisonous assault. Following the system's instructions without hesitation, Levi quickly summoned crimson fire and used it to intercept the incoming poisonous attack, successfully stopping the deadly energy before it could reach him. Titus felt deeply humiliated and frustrated. After using the sky sword, and even his life-saving technique earlier, most of his energy had already been drained. What little strength remained inside him was now painfully limited. Still unwilling to give up, he recklessly gathered every last fragment of strength he had left, preparing to unleash his most powerful and dangerous technique. Titus let out a deep growl filled with stubborn resolve. No matter what happened, he refused to lose, not when the fate of Chongshi City depended on him. Behind him, Levi also grew serious when the system issued a warning. It explained that the demon's upcoming technique carried devastating destructive power capable of wiping everything out. The system urgently informed Levi that his power was nearing its peak. If he gathered all the internal chi from the Earth realm and fused it with the force of crimson fire, he might be able to release an attack powerful enough to resist the demon. Levi immediately focused his mind and condensed the crimson fire into his fist. Meanwhile, the system continued issuing commands, urging him to draw out even more energy from within his body. Having already reached the late stage of cultivation, Levi now had to break past the limits of his physical body if he wished to step into the next realm of power. The system reminded him that he had remained stuck in the late Earth realm for far too long. The only way forward was to release all of his internal chi at once, blocking the enemy's deadly attack while using that moment to break through into the heavenly realm. Hearing this, Levi immediately stepped forward to meet Titus's incoming strike. At the same moment, Vivian and Matteo watched in horror as the demon unleashed his devastating killing blow. Without hesitation, Vivian activated her ability and pushed her strength to its limit, doubling the blessing she placed upon Levi. The system immediately acknowledged the perfectly timed support and encouraged Levi to stay focused and fight with everything he had. Two terrifying techniques collided head-on. The impact produced a thunderous explosion so powerful that everyone nearby was forced to throw themselves to the ground to avoid the violent shockwave. Titus's eyes burned with rage when he realized that even his full-power killing attack had been blocked by the man he hated most. The backlash sent his exhausted body flying through the air. Refusing to accept defeat, he screamed in fury. He could not allow these people to reach Chongshi City while Zoel was still there. But despite his stubborn will, his body had reached its limit. All of his inner strength had been completely drained. With the last of his strength, he quietly called out to Zoe. Suddenly, Titus's body was lifted violently into the air before crashing down heavily onto the ground. Just when it seemed the battle had finally ended, something unexpected happened. The moon above suddenly turned a terrifying shade of blood red, and an angry female voice echoed across the sky, scolding the arrogant intruders for daring to enter her territory. Although her figure remained invisible, an overwhelming spiritual force swept across the battlefield. The system urgently warned Levi that his body lacked spiritual resistance, and he was now under severe mental suppression. Unable to resist the terrifying pressure, the rooster collapsed onto the ground in confusion, completely unable to understand what was happening. Vivian and Mateo were both forced to their knees by the crushing spiritual force. With growing horror, they realized that this terrifying aura belonged to the demon guardian of the nation. The she-wolf respectfully bowed toward the invisible presence and greeted Her Majesty. At that moment, two invisible hands appeared, gently lifting the wounded and unconscious Titus. The powerful spiritual figure revealed herself, the Blood Moon Queen. Her cold voice echoed clearly in the ears of Levi's group. She asked whether they had come to punish her and seize Chongshi City, or if they were here to rescue the people mentioned in that video. Vivian closed her eyes helplessly, unable to speak. Deep down, she knew the truth. This was a terrifying continental-level demon far beyond their ability to fight. At that moment, she finally understood why the people at headquarters had believed that coming here was nothing less than a suicidal decision. The Blood Moon Empress quietly searched through Titus's memories to understand what had happened. Once she learned the full story, her anger erupted as she blamed the insignificant humans for daring to challenge her authority and injure her husband. With a voice filled with fury, the Blood Moon Empress threatened them, asking coldly if they were prepared to face her wrath. Inside Levi's mind, the system completely panicked. In its view, everything was over. Levi had failed to break through into the heavenly realm and had absolutely no chance against such a powerful demon. Suddenly, a small hand tugged on Levi's clothes. It was Jasper, who walked up beside him looking slightly dazed. He complained that he had a strange headache and felt like he might be getting sick. The system was baffled that Jasper had reached Levi without being affected by the terrifying spiritual pressure. It angrily told Levi to ignore Jasper's minor headache and focus instead on the others who were completely immobilized. Jasper's unusual presence quickly caught the attention of the Blood Moon Empress. She noticed something shocking about him. His body seemed strangely empty, as if it lacked a normal soul, and he remained unaffected by the overwhelming spiritual pressure. Realizing that this mysterious human possessed 9 souls, the Blood Moon Empress hesitated. Instead of attacking immediately, she decided it would be wiser to take Titus back to Chongshi City for treatment first. Before leaving, she issued a cold warning to everyone present. They were to leave Chongshi City immediately, because if they dared take another step forward, none of them would return alive. With that final threat, the Blood Moon Empress disappeared into the darkness, carrying the wounded Titus along with the she-wolf. As soon as she vanished, the moon slowly returned to its normal color and the suffocating spiritual pressure faded away. Jasper looked around in confusion, rubbing his head. The strange headache that had been bothering him had suddenly disappeared. Levi stared up at the sky with visible exhaustion. Vivian felt the pressure lift from her body, and the surviving warriors finally let out long breaths of relief. Against all odds, they had survived. Leon could hardly believe what had just happened. Surviving the arrival of the Blood Moon Empress seemed like nothing short of a miracle. Jasper hurried over to Levi with concern, asking if he was all right. He had noticed that Levi's clothes had been torn apart during the brutal battle with the monsters. Suddenly, a voice came from the dog tag hanging around Jasper's neck, calmly telling him not to worry because it had brought spare clothes for everyone. The rooster stared in shock as a small hand popped out of the badge on Jasper's neck. It was Isaac, who had cleverly hidden himself inside the pendant. The sudden sight scared Jasper so badly that he nearly fainted. As the team's perfect assistant, Isaac had prepared everything in advance. Besides clothes, he had also brought food, drinks, and even sleeping bags in case the exhausted warriors needed rest. After a long and exhausting night, Vivian used her powers to help heal Levi and the others. Meanwhile, Isaac carefully made sure she also recovered her energy. The rest of the team happily enjoyed the food the boy had brought with him. When Levi finally woke up, Jasper rushed over excitedly and said he had been waiting for him for a long time. The system quietly noted how much support Levi had received from his teammates who spent the entire night helping everyone recover. Jasper held out 2 steamed buns and explained that he had waited for Levi to wake up because Levi's powerful flame could help warm them. When Levi used his divine flame technique to heat the buns, the system became furious. In its mind, the powerful divine flame ability had been given for combat, not for warming food. The system grew even more irritated when it noticed that Levi's mastery of the flame technique had increased to 80% just from heating the buns. Levi looked embarrassed as he repeatedly burned Jasper's buns by accident. Just as the buns were about to turn completely black, a splash of water suddenly landed on them. The rooster had stepped in and added water to keep them from burning, secretly getting back at Levi for earlier letting his attack slide. The delicious smell of the freshly heated buns made Jasper beam with happiness. Meanwhile, the stun system discovered that Levi's mastery of the technique had suddenly reached 100%. Everyone gathered around the campfire, happily eating the hot buns that were the result of Levi and Jasper's teamwork. Jasper gently handed one of the buns to the hen and encouraged her to eat. Watching this scene, the rooster began to reconsider something. Maybe these 2 humans weren't as evil as he had originally believed. Just then, Levi walked over to the rooster and casually said that he was still hungry because the buns weren't enough. He added that he would prefer to eat some eggs, especially ones laid by the hen. The rooster froze instantly, realizing he had completely misjudged the situation. As expected, these 2 humans really were evil after all. The rooster trembled with anger at Levi's shameless request, yet in the end he reluctantly complied. With visible irritation, he helped Levi prepare the eggs, grumbling inwardly while trying to keep his dignity intact. While Levi handled the eggs, the system suddenly detected a powerful energy hidden inside them. It quickly analyzed the contents and reported that these eggs contained enough nourishment to allow the host to endure hunger and thirst for an entire week. Leon and the others stared in disbelief when they realized what was happening. These eggs came from a creature that was clearly filled with dark energy, yet instead of treating them as dangerous objects, Levi was calmly preparing them as food. The twins quietly glanced at the rooster's thin and rather unimpressive body. Looking at his skinny frame, they couldn't help wondering if he was really capable of laying eggs like a hen. Just then, Isaac suddenly appeared out of nowhere, startling everyone and interrupting the chaotic scene. After gaining their attention, he said that he needed to tell them something important. He asked everyone present to keep a secret. Levi and Jasper possessed abilities that clearly exceeded the national rank, but Isaac hoped that no one would post this information online. Instead, he requested that they only report it privately to their superiors. Isaac also explained the story that One Eye had spread earlier. According to that version, Levi and Jasper were powerful cultivators invited from the mountains. They had already reached a higher realm of strength, but chose to remain humble and low-key. Anyone reckless enough to spread rumors about them might end up offending them and facing unpredictable consequences. Everyone nodded vigorously in agreement. Vivian silently accepted this explanation as well. After all, even the pets around Levi and Jasper seemed to possess strange constitutions capable of directly absorbing evil spirits. Leon quietly planned to report everything to his superior later so they could decide how to deal with these 2 mysterious newcomers to Yanhai. When he asked Vivian whether they should take the chance to retreat from this dangerous place, her answer surprised him. Leon and the twins turned pale when they heard her decision. The evil spirits in Kangshur were far too powerful. If it weren't for the senior cultivators from Team 66 saving them earlier, they would already be dead. and yet so far they had only encountered 4 national-ranked demons. Vivian also understood how dangerous the situation had become. After thinking for a moment, she decided that everyone else should return as quickly as possible. She intended to continue the journey alone. Earlier she had worried that the group might not escape safely, but now that she had seen Levi's abilities, she believed she could push forward while still protecting everyone. Vivian knew very well that continuing this mission was almost like walking straight toward death. Even so, she refused to give up on saving her brother Tanji, whose fate inside the city remained completely unknown. If she turned back now, she feared she might never see her brother again for the rest of her life. After sincerely thanking everyone for accompanying her this far, Vivian said she would try to continue the mission alone from here. Gathering his courage, Mateo stepped forward and told Vivian firmly that he had no intention of backing down. No matter how dangerous it was, he would accompany her. Vivian was even more surprised when Levi and Jasper spoke up as well. They reminded everyone that one had entrusted them with the mission to rescue the people, and they had no intention of abandoning it. Seeing that the 2 powerful senior cultivators were staying, the twins realized they had little choice. With a helpless sigh, they prepared to follow the plan. Vivian felt deeply moved by everyone's decision to stand beside her despite the danger. For a moment she struggled to find the right words, because nothing seemed strong enough to express her gratitude. Watching Mateo's eager determination, Leon could only cover his face and look away in frustration. Deep inside, he cursed silently, unable to understand why he was being dragged into such a reckless mission. Using a spirit talisman, Vivian guided the group toward a hidden passage that secretly led into Kongsher. High above the walls stood a strange building that looked very much like an ancient temple. In front of them stood a tall wall covered in thick vines. Leon stared at it suspiciously, wondering whether it was simply a wall or if a hidden passage was concealed behind it. Vivian calmly explained that it was not an ordinary wall. She then used her own blood to activate the guiding talisman. Seeing this, Leon frowned thoughtfully. The talisman had clearly been drawn using someone else's blood, which made him wonder whether some special ritual or spell was required to activate it. Whoever designed this system had been extremely cautious. Soon the talisman began to glow faintly, reacting to the heavenly aura surrounding Vivian. A hidden passage slowly revealed itself before them. Leon realized that only people with special qualifications could open this entrance, meaning outsiders would have almost no chance of discovering it. Vivian then instructed the twins to remain outside and stand guard. She warned them seriously that if the group failed to return within 3 days, they must immediately leave and report everything to headquarters. Leon quickly considered offering to stay behind with the twins as backup, hoping to avoid entering the dangerous passage. However, before he could finish his sentence, Mateo grabbed him by the arm and declared that the 2 of them would scout the passage ahead. Realizing he had just been volunteered as a scout, Leon cursed bitterly in his heart. He couldn't understand why he had to risk his life just because Mateo was feeling heroic. After the 2 successfully entered the passage, Vivian turned toward Levi and told him that it was time for the rest of them to follow. Watching the others disappear into the hidden passage, the twins remained outside. They believed that with the help of the messenger and the senior cultivators, the mission would succeed within 3 days. Giselle asked curiously what would happen if 3 days passed without news. Julian simply shrugged and said they would figure that out later. Before long, the entire squad had entered the mysterious building through the hidden passage. When Vivian and Levi finally arrived inside, Mateo quickly reported that everything ahead appeared calm and there were no immediate dangers. To ensure their safety, Vivian activated a concealment sphere that masked everyone's presence and suppressed their breathing aura. Mateo and Leon walked at the front as scouts while Vivian and the others followed closely behind them. After observing the environment carefully, Leon realized that this secret passage was connected to the city's water supply system through a hidden teleportation array. Mateo suddenly stopped and whispered in shock, sensing a strong presence of formation energy surrounding the area. Vivian nodded thoughtfully and explained that the numerous formations likely formed part of the drainage and structural system beneath the tall buildings in the Kongsher district. Leon couldn't help noticing Mateo's determination. Despite the danger, Mateo showed absolutely no fear about entering the demon-controlled city to rescue the trapped civilians. Suddenly, Vivian's voice echoed urgently through the group's communication spell, warning everyone to stay alert. Her sharp senses had detected something unusual moving ahead of them. Moments later, a small demon appeared in front of the group. She introduced herself proudly as Tori, a fifth-level demon belonging to the Five-Colored Pheasant clan. Despite being only a young cub, Tori showed no fear toward the humans. Instead, she calmly asked who they were and why they had entered this place. Mateo grew irritated that such a tiny creature dared to speak to them so arrogantly. Meanwhile, Leon quietly sensed that the little demon might actually be stronger than she appeared. When the group remained silent, Tori raised her voice and declared that if they refused to answer, she would attack them. The warriors exchanged puzzled looks, unable to understand what was wrong with this strange little demon. Tori proudly declared that since they had already lost to the Empress earlier, they obviously had no chance against her. Without hesitation, she rushed forward toward Leon, determined to punish these rude intruders. But suddenly her legs tangled awkwardly beneath her, causing her to lose balance and fall face first onto the ground. The entire group stared in stunned silence. The fierce little demon who had just threatened them now looked more like a clumsy child. Crying loudly from the pain, Tori shouted for other demons to come help her deal with the humans. The rooster glanced around in confusion and realized that besides Tori, he was the only member of the animal tribe nearby. Tori suddenly sensed the rooster's presence and happily declared that he must be from her tribe. She said she could hear the hearts of her fellow tribe members. Only then did the rooster realize that the small pheasant girl was actually blind. Tori laughed cheerfully and assumed the rooster was hiding from the other demons while playing a game of hide-and-seek. Curiously reaching out, she touched the rooster and asked what color his feathers were and whether they looked beautiful. She proudly explained that her own feathers and even her eyes were said to shine in 5 different colors. The rooster stared at her strangely and thought that this little chick must be colorblind. After all, if her eyes were clearly red, how could she possibly claim they were 5 colors? Tori pouted angrily and shouted that those eyes weren't even hers in the first place. She explained softly that Her Majesty, the Queen, had personally used her own blood to create these eyes for her. Long ago, Tori had lost her original eyes after they were cruelly gouged out, and the Queen had replaced them with something new. Tori spoke sadly, saying that her old eyes had once been beautiful. According to her clanmates, they had shimmered with 5 colors like precious gems, and everyone used to admire how radiant they looked. Hearing this painful story, the rooster felt a twinge of sympathy deep inside. He believed her words, but still warned her quietly not to call for her demon companions, because the 2 terrifying humans behind him would destroy every demon who appeared. Tori, however, misunderstood his concern. She praised the rooster for being brave, saying it was impressive that he dared to play around with the Queen's human servants. She added that she herself had never dared approach these people before, even though the Queen had said they were no longer able to resist. Tori's words shocked Vivian. She immediately wondered whether the humans mentioned were actually Tangi experts who had survived but somehow lost the ability to fight back. After thinking carefully, Vivian concluded that the demon ruling Tanshi must be the Queen Tori spoke about. The terrifying possibility crossed her mind that the warriors inside the city were now under that demon's control. The more she thought about it, the more worried Vivian became. Perhaps the spirits of those warriors had been turned into puppets controlled by demons. She was especially worried about her younger brother, Valerio, not knowing whether he was alive, dead, or enslaved. Mateo quietly sent a voice transmission to Vivian, asking what their next move should be. Should they eliminate this demon immediately, or keep her alive? Leon suggested capturing her first so they could gather more information. Vivian cautiously asked Tori whether she knew a continental rank warrior named Valerio. Tori then suggested that the rooster accompany her to search for that person, saying she did not want to disappoint Her Majesty the Queen. She explained that they needed to go to the Wall of Ant Punishment to find him. None of the other demons dared to go there. The roosters secretly realized that the person Tori mentioned was most likely the very target Levi's group had come to rescue. Tori was amazed when the rooster agreed to go with her to the execution wall. At the same time, Vivian felt a surge of hope after learning that Tori knew exactly where her brother was being held. As they walked together, the rooster could not resist asking Tori why she wanted to find Valerio in the first place. Tori answered honestly that the queen wanted stronger demons capable of defeating human warriors. She herself also wanted to become a brave demon someday. When she asked the rooster his name, he awkwardly admitted that he didn't actually have one. After hearing others call him a chicken earlier, she asked curiously whether he truly was a chicken. The rooster shook his head awkwardly, clearly embarrassed but still unwilling to admit the truth. Tori then happily suggested giving him a name. She asked if she could call him Six. The rooster thought about it for a moment and sighed internally. Being called Six was still better than being mistaken for a hen. Tori led the group to the end of the corridor where the path suddenly turned upward and required them to climb. Leon's voice came from behind, asking nervously whether any traps might be waiting above. Vivian carefully scanned the area with her spiritual senses before replying that she could not detect any demon energy nearby. The rooster climbed up the ladder after Tori and looked around cautiously. Fortunately, it seemed that no demons were currently guarding the area. Soon the rest of Levi and Vivian's group followed up the stairs and moved toward what looked like an elevator entrance. Tori said uncertainly that there might be a button somewhere nearby that could activate the device. The rooster looked confused and asked whether they had truly lived here before. It seemed strange that they didn't even recognize something as simple as a human elevator. Tori explained that all of them had originally lived underground alongside the queen. The rooster then asked whether she had once lived in Tangi City, which might explain why she understood humans so well. Tori admitted that she often secretly hid in the human city. She said that the queen had told her many stories about the human world, but had always forbidden her from getting close to humans. Still, curiosity eventually led her to sneak away without the queen noticing. That was when she first encountered Valerio. As they approached his prison, Tori's body began trembling again. She desperately wanted to see him, but was too afraid to go closer. So she asked the rooster to gently push her forward. If he was also too scared, she said the queen's human servants could push her instead. Following her guidance, they arrived at a heavy stone door. Levi walked beside them casually, looking as relaxed as if he were simply taking a peaceful stroll. Suddenly, Tori's trembling voice echoed through the hallway as she asked the queen's supposed servants to open the door for her. Vivian quickly realized that Tori believed they were still under the queen's control. If they revealed the truth, everything could fall apart, so they had no choice but to play along. Vivian, Leon, and Mateo stepped forward and slowly pushed open the heavy stone door. The moment the door opened, Vivian froze in place. The horrifying sight inside made her entire body stiff with shock. Meanwhile, Tori tightly shut her eyes, too afraid to look. Inside the chamber hung the brutally tortured corpses of Changi experts, their lifeless bodies displayed like grim trophies. Right in the center hung Vivian's brother, Valerio. His body was covered in red ants that were slowly devouring him, yet he was somehow still alive. Hearing someone call his name, he painfully turned his head toward the door. Tori's entire body trembled with fear as she forced herself to step inside the room. She remembered the queen's words, which told her that true courage meant facing fear directly instead of running away. Gathering her courage, she screamed loudly, telling herself that the blood of brave demons flowed through her veins. Driven by that determination, she rushed toward Valerio, believing that killing him would finally remove the fear inside her heart. Seeing the demon charging toward her brother, Vivian completely lost her composure and shouted Valerio's name. Mateo reacted instantly. His arrow shot forward in a flash and pierced straight through Tori's wing, leaving her face pale from the sudden pain. Everything had happened so quickly that the rooster barely had time to react. Even Jasper and Levi looked momentarily stunned by the sudden turn of events. Tori's body was pinned against the wall by the arrow through her wing. She cried out in pain as the sharp shaft held her firmly in place. Only then did the young demon realize with horror that these humans were not servants of the queen at all. Vivian rushed forward to her brother and quickly pulled several iron nails from the tortured bodies hanging nearby. The other two warriors in the room were already dead, their bodies long since lifeless. Valerio was still breathing faintly. Vivian immediately used her healing abilities, desperately trying to stabilize his condition. After recovering slightly, Valerio told his sister that he already felt better and could sense his internal energy returning. He then began healing himself with his own abilities. Meanwhile, Tori remained pinned to the wall by her injured wing. She asked the rooster softly whether the humans had threatened him. The rooster hesitated. He wanted to help Tori, but he knew the conflict between humans and demons was deep. Helping her might anger the humans and get him killed. Still, seeing a young member of his own tribe suffering like that was unbearable. A mature warrior, he believed, should protect the young. Just as he was about to act, Valerio suddenly cried out, sensing the energy of a national-rank demon nearby. Vivian quickly reassured her brother, telling him not to panic because that demon from Yanhai was actually fighting on the side of humans. She praised him for enduring such brutal torture without resorting to the desperate methods many others might have chosen. Overcome with emotion, Vivian broke into tears as she admitted she had never dared hope that her brother was still alive. She told him that if his life were ever truly in danger again, he should not hesitate to use any method necessary to survive. As long as he lived, that was enough for her. Just as she was about to introduce Levi and the others, Valerio interrupted her. He slowly approached Tori and asked whether she had really led them here. Vivian confirmed it, explaining that the demon was blind and extremely weak. Valerio coldly observed Tori and explained that her abilities had been destroyed earlier. Even though her body had undergone forced evolution, she remained incredibly fragile. Hearing his voice, Tori suddenly screamed in terror and begged him not to gouge out her eyes. Without the slightest hint of mercy, Valerio lunged forward like a predator unleashed. In one brutal motion, swift and horrifying, he tore out her eyes, leaving the air heavy with violence and shock. The act was so sudden and savage that it seemed to freeze the moment itself. The cruelty of the man's actions ignited a blazing fury within the rooster. Watching the brutal attack unfold filled him with a deep, burning rage that surged through his body like wildfire. Tori's body trembled for a brief moment before she collapsed helplessly at the rooster's feet. Blood quickly spread across the ground beneath her, forming a dark, growing pool that made the scene even more heartbreaking. Reacting instantly, the rooster rushed forward toward Valerio with fierce determination. He placed himself firmly between the injured Tori and the ruthless attacker, using his own body as a shield to protect her from any further harm. Even though her wounds were severe and her strength was fading fast, Tori somehow managed to speak. With a weak but urgent voice, she pleaded with the rooster to run away immediately and not stay there any longer. The rooster suddenly realized that the faint energy wave that once came from Tori had completely vanished. With a bitter murmur, he muttered that even a demon like him could no longer sense her presence, which only showed how fragile and weak she had always been. Yet even at the edge of death, the only thing she worried about was his safety. Jasper could no longer hold back the tears that had been building in his eyes. Looking toward Levi with a trembling voice, he admitted that he couldn't understand why such a deep sadness was overwhelming him at that very moment. Valerio turned toward his sister with visible confusion and asked why she had claimed that a national-ranked demon was actually on their side. He couldn't understand why witnessing the death of another demon had caused such a strong reaction within him. Valerio still couldn't shake off his suspicion about the rooster. In his mind, the creature might simply be pretending to help humans while hiding its real motives. He believed it could even be a spy, cleverly disguising itself and using all its abilities to stay close to the humans. With a furious roar, the rooster suddenly charged straight toward Valerio without hesitation. At the same moment, Vivian rushed forward to shield her brother. She quickly activated her boundary sphere, forming a protective barrier that rose like a glowing wall to block the rooster's powerful attack. The moment Valerio saw the rooster's terrifying power collide with his sister's barrier, his face instantly turned pale. Fear spread across his expression as he realized that the shield might not survive the impact. A chilling thought flashed through his mind. His sister, a ruler-level warrior protected by a brilliant shining shield, was being overwhelmed in an instant by the crushing force of a demon. Compared with such terrifying strength, Valerio understood that his own combat ability was nowhere close to matching a true national-ranked evil beast. Before Vivian could even react to the destruction of her shield, the rooster had already thrust his fist forward toward her, moving with explosive speed. Just as the rooster's fist was about to strike, a hand suddenly caught it firmly in midair. It was Levi. With calm authority, he ordered the rooster to stop, reminding him that this woman had helped heal their injuries earlier. Watching Levi restrain the enraged rooster so effortlessly left Valerio completely stunned. In a quiet voice filled with disbelief, he whispered that this man must be one of the powerful masters his sister had mentioned before. Seeing that Levi had blocked him, the rooster let out a harsh and bitter hiss. He realized that this man would never allow him to take revenge against someone from his own kind. Tori had always been nothing more than a small chicken in the eyes of the world. For a powerful man, killing a weak girl like her had always been considered acceptable. The rooster had known this cruel truth for a long time. But this time, watching Tori die right before him made his heart feel unbearably heavy. Suddenly, a sharp slapping sound echoed through the air. Vivian had struck Valerio across the face. Her voice trembled with anger as she shouted that she had already told him it was Tori who had guided them here. She went on to emphasize that the demon was extremely weak and posed almost no threat at all. Her voice grew even harsher as she demanded to know why Valerio had still chosen to kill Tori. Valerio refused to show even a hint of guilt. With a cold and stubborn tone, he replied immediately that as a powerful warrior, he did not need any particular reason to kill a demon. His blunt words left Vivian momentarily speechless. She realized with a heavy heart that although she hated what he had done, his reasoning was not entirely wrong. When his sister accused him of acting with excessive cruelty, Valerio responded firmly. In his mind, showing mercy to demons was impossible, and therefore his actions could never be considered cruel. With anger rising in his voice, he pointed toward the bodies of his two fallen teammates. He shouted that these demons had tortured them day after day until they finally died in agony. He continued describing the suffering he had endured while waiting desperately for Vivian to rescue him. Every single minute of that torment had felt unbearably long. During that nightmare, he kept repeating the same thought to himself again and again. His sister was already on her way, and he only needed to endure just a little longer. After hearing about everything her brother had gone through, Vivian felt her anger slowly fade. She simply couldn't bring herself to continue scolding him any further. Even so, Valerio unexpectedly warned his sister about the rooster once again. He wondered aloud if this demon might actually be a spy hiding among them. Those words earned him another sharp slap from Vivian. She looked at him with confusion, unable to understand why her brother was still so furious and suspicious. She warned him sternly never to question the rooster's loyalty to the two senior experts who trusted it completely. Mateo and Lion both nodded in agreement with Vivian's statement. They calmly added that the person who needed to be rescued had already been saved. After that brief exchange, everyone quickly began preparing to leave the dangerous place without wasting any more time. Looking at the bodies lying on the ground, Vivian asked Levi to cremate them using his hellfire. At the same time, Valerio cast the gray veil skill around the area. Within the veil's barrier, the air inside remained completely stable, with no change in temperature or pressure compared to the outside. The rooster quietly stared at Tori's lifeless body before turning to Levi. He asked if Levi could also help cremate her remains. When Levi agreed without hesitation, the rooster awkwardly reminded him that this was cremation for respect, not roasting food. Before long, everything had been prepared properly. The ashes of the deceased were carefully separated and gently placed onto clean pieces of cloth. As the rooster watched Vivian carefully gathering the ashes with great care, he felt a strange discomfort in his chest. Unable to hold back his curiosity, he asked her why she was going through so much effort. Vivian explained patiently that the ashes were extremely important. They needed to return them to the families of the fallen as a final keepsake. She added softly that this was an old human tradition that had been passed down for many generations. The rooster frowned deeply, clearly confused. He couldn't understand why humans would go through so much trouble for someone who had already died. Feeling deeply guilty about Tori's death, Vivian apologized to the rooster on behalf of her brother. She explained that Valerio's hatred for evil creatures came from the brutal murder of his teammates and the torture he had personally suffered. Even though Tori posed no danger, he still killed her out of that hatred. Vivian's apology was sincere, but the rooster simply turned his head away coldly. No matter how many apologies were spoken, nothing could bring Tori back to life. As the group prepared to leave, the rooster decided to collect Tori's ashes himself, only to realize he had nowhere to keep them. At that moment, Isaac suddenly stretched out a hand from the pendant hanging around the rooster's neck and handed him a small pouch. The rooster carefully placed Tori's ashes inside the pouch. In his heart, he quietly decided that if the chance ever came, he would return them to her family. Brother Isaac then emerged more clearly from the medallion around the rooster's neck and began passing along the instructions from the mysterious one-eyed man. He explained that if the rescue team successfully saved Valerio, they should also try their best to locate and rescue Serenity's military advisor. The one-eyed man understood that the situation inside Mercenary City was extremely unpredictable and filled with danger. Although he had made this request, Vivian still had full authority to decide how to act. Hearing this, Vivian quietly thought to herself that One and Tracy must have truly wanted to save Serenity. That must be why they sent the two senior experts along with the rooster. If they had not sent Unit 6666 to assist her, she knew she would never have been able to enter Mercenary City and rescue her brother. After thinking for a moment, Vivian finally decided that they should try to find and rescue Serenity, the general's mother. She quickly instructed Valerio to leave together with Mateo and Lion. She explained that they should first escape through the hidden passage leading to the outskirts of the city. Meanwhile, she and Squad 666 would head deeper into the city to rescue General Serenity. Noticing the worried look on Valerio's face, she asked him why he seemed so uneasy. Valerio lowered his gaze quietly after hearing her plan. He admitted that he was worried about Vivian facing such a powerful demon. He suggested that they should first retreat, call more warriors from headquarters, and then return with stronger forces to rescue Serenity. Seeing the concern in her brother's eyes, Vivian realized that Serenity had always been his most trusted military advisor. Perhaps that was why Valerio was also deeply worried about her safety. Vivian believed that there must still be more survivors trapped inside Sonny. Even if their consciousness had been controlled by the demon, they were still alive. She planned to report this information to the general staff so the rescue mission could continue. As a Continental-ranked warrior, she knew she couldn't simply focus on saving her brother while ignoring the soldiers who had fought bravely to defend the city. Their families were surely still hoping and praying for their safe return. Vivian reassured her brother that the two senior experts and the rooster were incredibly powerful. With all of them working together, she believed nothing would go wrong. She urged him to leave with Mateo and Lion first while the rest of them went to rescue Serenity and later meet them outside the city. Mateo then suggested a slight adjustment to the plan. He proposed that Lion should escort Valerio out of the city while he stayed behind with Vivian to rescue the remaining people. When Lion noticed the fierce look Valerio gave Mateo after hearing that suggestion, he couldn't help but quietly admire Mateo's bravery. Just as his sister was urging him to leave, Valerio suddenly shouted something shocking. Serenity had betrayed humanity. At first, Valerio had wanted to keep this secret hidden. He didn't want anyone to know about Serenity's betrayal. But after Tori was captured by the demon, he had no choice but to reveal the truth. Serenity had surrendered and become a servant to the Continental-ranked demon that had taken control of Tori. Valerio's revelation struck Vivian like a bolt of thunder. Horror spread across her face as she struggled to believe what she had just heard. Serenity, the woman who had always feared death and desperately clung to life, had actually chosen to become a demon's servant. A distant memory suddenly surfaced in Vivian's mind. Her thoughts drifted back to a tense meeting held long ago in the High Command Chamber at Lungo headquarters, where the fate of several warriors had been discussed with grave seriousness. During that meeting, the entire Command Council had been deeply concerned. Young Valerio was stationed alone in Tony, defending the area by himself, and the situation made many of the senior officers uneasy. Although medicine and healing were highly respected in Kongshur, Valerio was still a frontline warrior. Because of this, the command ultimately decided to dispatch General Serenity from headquarters to assist him and strengthen the defense in Kongshur. When Vivian cautiously questioned Serenity's background during the meeting, the man seated beside her spoke reassuringly. He calmly explained that Serenity belonged to the prestigious Jin family, was the wife of the future patriarch, and that her personal record and loyalty were completely spotless. Hearing that Serenity came from the powerful Jin family surprised Vivin greatly. Even Elder Yu, who was known for his strict standards, appeared relieved and satisfied after hearing that information. After the meeting had officially ended and the others began leaving, Vivin planned to approach the commander privately. She wanted to discuss her brother Valerio's situation in more detail. At that moment, Serenity happened to walk past the corridor outside. The commander noticed her and immediately called her over, warmly introducing her to Vivin with a friendly tone. The commander explained that Serenity was among the very first military advisors officially recognized and accredited by the Coordination Center. Serenity greeted Vivin politely with a calm and steady voice. She promised that she would support Vivin's brother fully and do everything within her power to keep Sanchi and its citizens safe. Remembering that moment now, Vivin found it almost impossible to believe that Serenity could be a traitor. Yet Valerio's firm accusations planted a seed of doubt that she couldn't easily ignore. Valerio explained grimly that after the demons finished torturing the warriors, the bodies of the others had been nailed to the wall. However, there had been no sign of Serenity among them, and that absence alone was enough to make him suspect betrayal. Valerio went on to claim that the cruel video showing the demon tormenting everyone had been recorded only after receiving a signal from Serenity herself. By now Valerio had completely lost his composure. His voice rose as he shouted that Serenity was not being controlled by the demon at all. According to him, she had been fully conscious and had willingly cooperated with the enemy. Valerio's harsh accusation caused Isaac to immediately step forward in defense of Serenity. He reminded everyone that the Jin family had always been one of the great clans devoted to protecting the country, and their warriors had fought demons bravely for generations. Because of that, he refused to believe she could betray humanity. Vivin quietly reflected on the matter as well. After all, Serenity was destined to become the future matriarch of the influential Jin family. Seeing that the others still doubted him, Valerio spoke again with stubborn determination. He insisted that they should find Serenity themselves and uncover the truth with their own eyes. Valerio glanced at his sister, realizing she must have taken enormous risks to come all the way here. If that was the case, then he too had to take the risk of returning to the laboratory. His dark, suspicious gaze shifted toward the rooster. In his heart, he could not accept the idea of Vivin working alongside a demon. No matter how much his sister trusted it, he believed a demon would eventually reveal its true nature. Vivin understood that Valerio was suffering greatly and clearly wanted to leave this dangerous place as soon as possible. But she also knew that he understood Sanchi better than anyone else, and with him guiding them, their chances of survival would be much higher. After thinking it through, Vivin proposed that everyone should continue searching for Serenity together as a group. She truly didn't want her brother to place himself in danger again, but under the current circumstances, it seemed like the most reasonable decision available. No matter what happened, Vivin silently promised herself that she would protect her brother at all costs. As they reached the office area and began carefully searching the surroundings, they suddenly sensed the presence of a demon nearby. Vivin quickly warned everyone that a 9th-level demon was close. She also cautioned them not to disturb the nearby 7th-level creatures lurking in the area. She immediately activated her breath-masking domain, which covered an area of about 500 meters, allowing their presence to remain hidden within the massive building. However, her thought transfer domain only extended 5 meters. Because of that limitation, she quietly reminded everyone to stay close. Just then, one demon angrily slammed a stack of documents onto the table and complained loudly that the prince consort had fallen ill, forcing others to handle his duties. The demons assigned to those tasks looked miserable and confused. They couldn't understand why a prince with such immense power would stop working simply because he was sick. They even began discussing whether it would be better to postpone the work entirely until the great emperor recovered. Some of them insisted that the prince, given his strength, shouldn't even be capable of feeling unwell. Listening to the demons argue about work like ordinary clerks made Vivin strangely realize that, in some ways, they behaved no differently from humans. Since Valerio knew the building extremely well, he began guiding the group skillfully through twisting corridors and various sections of the complex. Following his lead, the squad carefully moved through different parts of the facility while trying to remain completely unnoticed. After wandering through several hallways and rooms, Valerio finally directed everyone into a quiet and deserted corridor. At the end of the passage stood a massive door marked with a warning sign stating that the area was an important scientific and technical research zone and that outsiders were strictly forbidden to enter. Valerio quietly explained that this was the place he needed to reach. Once they stepped inside, Valerio suggested that Vivin and the others inspect the surrounding rooms while he went to retrieve something extremely important from the laboratory. When Vivin saw her brother quickly turning to leave alone, she immediately protested. She didn't want him going anywhere by himself and insisted that she should accompany him. Just then, Vivin suddenly heard human voices coming from a nearby small room. The sound confused her, and a sudden thought crossed her mind that Serenity might actually be inside. Curious and cautious, Vivin slowly approached the doorway. Instead of finding General Serenity, she overheard a demon asking two people about a strange food called cake. The two humans laughed and explained it was just an ordinary flour cake, joking that the demon had clearly never tasted it before. Peeking inside, Vivin saw something astonishing. A 9th-level demon was casually chatting with two human warriors, and none of them showed the slightest hostility toward one another. The 9th-level demon even asked the two human experts to make more cake for him, clearly enjoying the treat. The scene left Vivin deeply shocked. At that moment, she realized that the surviving warriors seemed to view the demons who recently appeared in San She simply as new arrivals rather than enemies. Meanwhile, Valerio entered his old research laboratory and immediately opened a hidden safe, pulling out a carefully stored bottle of medicine. A satisfied smile appeared on his face when he realized that the chemical compound he had secretly hidden earlier had never been discovered. Without wasting another second, he grabbed his coat and hurried out of the laboratory. What Valerio didn't realize was that the moment he removed the mysterious vial, the national-ranked demon Zoelle suddenly awakened. Zoella spoke coldly, noting that she had finally located the last vial and fully intended to destroy it. Unaware of the deadly danger approaching, Valerio remained filled with determination. In his mind, carrying that vial out of the city might finally bring an end to the long and brutal war between demons and humans. At the same time, Vivin continued walking through the corridor, reflecting quietly on how the demons had gradually taken control of the people. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her shoulder, startling her so badly that her heart nearly stopped. It was Valerio, urgently telling everyone that they needed to leave immediately because he had already found what he came for. Seeing the confusion on Vivin's face, Valerio explained that searching for Serenity right now would most likely lead them into a direct confrontation with a powerful demon. According to him, the most important priority was to safely take everything he had retrieved from the laboratory. With excitement in his voice, Valerio showed Vivin the small vial, claiming that the medicine inside could potentially protect her and humanity from demons. He quickly pulled her aside, determined to get the bottle safely out of Chong-shi before anything could go wrong. Just as the group believed everything was going smoothly, a demon with both arms severed suddenly burst into the corridor. The wounded creature immediately recognized them and shouted in terror that they were fugitives who had escaped from the execution grounds. Moments later, another demon rushed out from a nearby office, trembling with fear as it saw the group. Valerio immediately realized that he couldn't allow these demons to report his escape to their queen. As the demons turned to flee, he lunged after them instantly, determined to silence them before they could alert the demon ruler controlling the city. Just when it seemed those demons were about to be captured, the rooster suddenly appeared out of nowhere and stopped Valerio. With quick reflexes, the rooster grabbed hold of the chains in Valerio's hands, preventing him from attacking the frightened demon cubs any further. Consumed by anger, Valerio pointed accusingly at the rooster. In his eyes, the creature's sudden intervention to protect the fleeing demons could mean only one thing: that the rooster had been a spy all along, secretly siding with the enemy. Hearing those accusations made the rooster uneasy. What worried him even more was the thought that the two terrifying men nearby might also start believing the same thing. Just then, Jasper's anxious voice broke the tension. He quickly asked whether the two small demon creatures were hurt or if they had managed to escape safely. The rooster froze in surprise. Jasper's genuine concern for those demons was completely unexpected, leaving him momentarily stunned. Valerio, however, only grew more furious. Raising his voice, he shouted that the rooster clearly stood against humanity and must be working as a spy for the demons. As he spoke, Valerio instinctively stepped forward and positioned himself in front of his sister, shielding her with his own body while warning her to stay alert. After protecting Vivian, he turned his cold, threatening gaze toward the rooster. The murderous intent in his eyes made it clear that he was ready to strike. Without hesitation, he unleashed a swarm of poisonous vines. They burst from the ground and slithered forward at terrifying speed, racing straight toward the demon. The thorny vines wrapped tightly around the rooster's arms and legs, piercing into his limbs and locking his body in place so he could no longer move freely. Despite the sudden attack, the rooster reacted quickly and tried to leap away from the vines. But the moment he moved, he felt a burning sting spread through his body. Those thorns had been coated with deadly poison. Watching the battle unfold, Vivian was startled by the immense strength her brother was displaying. His power seemed far greater than she had expected. Vivian frowned slightly as a memory from the past surfaced in her mind, something she had once heard during a private conversation. The commander had once told her that Valerio's strategic assessments were difficult to verify, yet when his abilities reached their peak, they could rival those of continental-ranked warriors. He had also mentioned that although Valerio was still young, his talent and potential were unlike anything they had seen before. Realizing this now, Vivian suddenly understood something shocking. Valerio had been suppressing his true combat strength all along. Meanwhile, the rooster struggled desperately against the vines. Sweat poured down his body as he endured the searing pain caused by the poison spreading through his limbs. To his horror, he watched as another venomous vine shot toward him, its sharp thorns glinting as it raced through the air. Just when the rooster believed this would be the end for him, Levi suddenly stepped forward and blocked Valerio's attack. Levi's voice thundered through the corridor as he angrily declared that no one had the right to beat his rooster. Hearing those words made the rooster's eyes well up with emotion. But the moment of gratitude shattered instantly when Levi casually added that he would personally kill the rooster if it refused to lay eggs. Valerio clenched his fists and shouted in frustration, demanding to know why they were protecting demons instead of standing with humanity. To him, the truth was simple and unquestionable. Demons were the natural enemies of all mankind. While the argument continued, Jasper carefully helped the rooster back onto his feet so he wouldn't collapse from the poison. Valerio stared at them all and demanded to know whether any of them still held loyalty or responsibility toward humanity. Hearing those words from her own brother left Vivian visibly shocked, as if she could hardly recognize the person standing before her. Jasper finally lost his patience with Valerio's constant accusations. Raising his voice, he declared firmly that the rooster belonged with them and was someone they considered a close and trusted friend. Levi nodded in agreement and backed up Jasper's statement, emphasizing just how important the rooster was to their group. He even added bluntly that anyone who dared to harm the rooster would have to deal with them first. Valerio's anger only deepened at those words. Just then, a chilling voice echoed through the air, Zoe's cold warning telling them to disappear from Tony immediately. In the next instant, an overwhelming spiritual force descended upon them. Everyone suddenly found their bodies frozen in place, unable to move.